I actually want to talk about the importance of free speech and internationalism in science. I think this is a really important topic that we should be well aware about, and it's pretty topical at this moment, I think, in terms of embracing what it means to be a scientist, a researcher, a graduate student. So if you don't know me, I'm Professor Dave Maslach. I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I wanted to pay the favor forward to help you out. So I often think about the importance of free speech and internationalism in science because it is the way that we actually make a tremendous amount of progress in this scientific endeavor. So we often think about science in a number of different ways. So one of them being the sort of scientific method where we make an insight in the world, then we make some sort of use theory to explain that insight, and then come up with a hypothesis, test that hypothesis, and see whether that hypothesis was not supported or supported, and then iterate through there. Another view is a sort of cumulative body of knowledge that we actually have, and we build on top of other knowledge. And that's, I think, the important thing with the issues and understanding of free speech and internationalism. So if we don't have ideas that are freely shared and that are not necessarily things where people don't want to go to, or we have a view that there's borders in the world in terms of our understanding, in that our knowledge in our country is better than somebody else's knowledge in another country, then what we're going to do is we're actually going to lose out in science, because we're building a much smaller pool of knowledge that we can go to and understand. There is so much more that we can understand around the world, particularly, if you start thinking about if you start thinking about all the different nuances we have in this world. So, stuff that happens in the place that I'm at is not going to be the same in some other place, in some under institution, or with different people that have different genetic makeup. Or maybe a certain location around the world is really spectacular because of its nuances, like I was going to say the jalapeno islands, the jalapeno, you know what I'm talking about, the islands where we have so much understanding about this world in terms of genetic diversity. And somebody's going to correct me on that. I hope they do. So, where we should be going and what we should be doing is exploring the world around us and making sure that we're not necessarily afraid of doing that. Whenever we start putting up false borders and we say that our science is better than their science, or their science is not as good as our science, or the fact that we can't go to certain things because we shouldn't say those particular things because we might offend some people, that's the moment that we should be really scared and nervous about. And those are moments where we are going to lack a tremendous amount of knowledge in terms of how the world works. And we're not going to build a body of knowledge that we can fully explain a particular phenomenon. So science, and this is where it's kind of interesting, I think. So not only is science an international construct, so that means we distinctively or inherently have to embrace other people. We have to embrace people that have different ethnicities, different diversities, come from different countries, speak different languages. All of that is so vitally important. I readily admit that I am not as good as somebody else that's out in the domain, in the world around us, because there's just so many more people in this world. There's so many more people that know something about a certain thing than I do, and that is okay. That's actually a really positive thing, because I can't learn everything, and neither can that person learn everything. So if they focus on the thing that they're working on, then I can share some knowledge from them, or they can share knowledge to me. And if I focus on the thing that I'm working on, I can share knowledge to them. The other thing that we have to be really careful of or be well aware of is not only embrace our neighbors and be very open to the world's population, but also be okay with going into topics and talking about things that make us nervous or anxious or that are politically incorrect in the current environment. Because that's how we actually explore the world around us. Most things in this world, most things that we now understand, were politically incorrect. They were a topic that had norms around it that people were really nervous about talking about, and yet we still explored them, or not us, but somebody else has explored them and pushed that boundary, so we understand the world around us. Galileo, right? There's so many scientists before us that have been persecuted or that have been portrayed in such a negative light because they're trying to tell some truth or just seeing what the world looks like. It is something that we have to be brave to do. And a lot of scientists, if you didn't know this, a lot of researchers are extremely brave to do these things because most of us are very nervous. We're very conservative on what we say and what we're doing because we don't want to make mistakes, but also we understand the large implications of the things that we are doing. So it's so vitally important. So the other thing that I think is important is that science is not only about pursuing ideas that matter in this world and having a positive impact in this world, but also viewing and investigating the things that have no impact in this world and are things that people would discount and not really pay attention to. Because often in those domains that people discount or don't pay attention to or they think they're irrelevant, there's some really interesting things that go in those particular areas. And we all have heard other people criticizing scientists and researchers for investigating things that are totally irrelevant. That's because we're trying to find out how that actually works. If they're irrelevant to the general public, that means nobody has studied it. Nobody's going to pay attention to it. So we need to study that to actually see whether the things that we take as granted in this world are actually true. We don't know if they're true until they're actually studied. The other thing that I think we have to be well aware of, and this is where the norm should be, and we should be really open to this as scientists and researchers, as professors, as graduate students, is to be able to refute our existing understanding of the world and be okay with that. So if we can't refute, if we can't take a pause and say we don't know this thing, or this thing that we currently understand is not true, then we don't necessarily have that much to say. So we should be able to refute our current understanding in this world and really push the boundaries on that. And at the same time, be forgiving of those people that have said or projected a different view of the world because they didn't have the information, the knowledge that we currently have or you currently have when you're refuting them. And we should be okay with that and acknowledge and be forgiving and open and just a genuinely nice person when you're trying to refute somebody else's ideas, because it does hurt when that happens. And we have to acknowledge that that is a really important thing. And lastly, I think that's important to acknowledge is that science is a community effort. Each person, their efforts, and the efforts that you're doing and the efforts that somebody else is doing is one little tiny piece to the puzzle. We don't know everything, and we will never know everything. That's in fact baked into our scientific understanding. The day that I announce as a researcher, as a scientist, that I announce that I know everything is the day that I probably should retire, because I'm never going to know everything. The world is infinite in terms of what we can understand, and we're only scratching the surface. So by the time I'm 85 or 90 years old, we'll be a little further ahead. in terms of our understanding of this world, but not much, because we still have so much to go and we have so much to do. So, for all of you that are thinking of going into science or research, really know that this is a beautiful career or a beautiful area to be in, because it does acknowledge the humanity that we have in this world and embrace other people by default, because we have to, because we can't learn everything ourselves. If we do, or if we say we do, we're doing ourselves a disservice. So with that, give me a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.